On a rainy afternoon, a starving little girl approaches a police officer and her loyal German shepherd with a simple question: "Can I eat with you?" What happens next? A moment of kindness and compassion from both the German shepherd and the officer captures the hearts of millions and sparks a wave of hope across the internet. Discover how a sandwich, a German shepherd's gentle touch, and one brave child change an entire community in this unforgettable true story. Love powerful true stories and inspiring German shepherd moments. Subscribe now for more real-life rescues and heartwarming stories every week. A faint golden mist drifts through Maple Hollow Park, dew shimmering on the grass as the sun breaks through the spring clouds. It's barely 7 a.m. The world's still half asleep, but Sergeant Natalie Turner has been up for hours. Off duty but never off guard, she sits cross-legged on a bench near the duck pond, the city's hum just a memory here beneath the maple trees. Her hair's tucked up under a ball cap, a loose NYPD hoodie over jeans, scuffed boots planted firmly in the dirt. Next to her sits Shadow, her German shepherd, 6 years old, coal-black and tan, all muscle and patience. He leans gently against her leg, ears perked as she unwraps a turkey sandwich, ripping off a piece for him before she even takes a bite herself. That's when it happens. From the far side of the bushes, the low whimper of someone too tired to hide. Natalie freezes, every instinct alive. Shadow lifts his nose, eyes soft, posture careful, not aggressive, just alert. And then she sees her. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9. Her tangled hair is the color of old honey, her feet bare and caked in mud, a dress that was probably pink once hanging off her thin shoulders. The girl's face is smeared with dirt, her eyes wild but hungry, darting from Natalie's hands to the sandwich to Shadow, back again. For a second, no one moves. In that suspended moment, the entire world narrows down to the bench, the food, and this child's desperate need. Shadow takes the lead, tail wagging just once as he stands and pads over. He doesn't bark, doesn't push. He simply sits in front of the girl and looks up, his body language saying, "It's okay. You're safe." Natalie waits, heartbeat thudding. The girl flinches, glancing at Shadow, then at Natalie, voice barely more than a whisper. "Can I eat with you?" Natalie nods, fighting the urge to cry. She tears off another hunk of sandwich and hands it to the girl, who grabs it with shaking hands and devours it. The air is so thick you could cut it. From behind a cluster of dogwoods, a phone camera glints. Rachel McAllister, a freelance writer known for her sharp eye and softer heart, is quietly recording the scene. Her face is unreadable, but she doesn't intervene. The park's usual morning calm is gone. Nearby, an old man scowls and shakes his head. A woman whispers to her jogging partner. Pity, suspicion, and judgment ripple through the crowd. Someone pulls their child away, muttering, "Where's that girl's mother?" Others watch silently, torn between concern and discomfort. Natalie ignores them all, focusing on the way the girl, Ellie, holds her food like it's the only thing tethering her to earth. Ellie's not the only one trembling. Natalie's hands aren't as steady as she'd like. She offers a bottle of water, her voice as gentle as she can manage. "What's your name, honey?" The girl hesitates. "Ellie." Just that, nothing more. Shadow, sensing the tension, rests his massive head gently on Ellie's knee. She freezes, then, miraculously, her whole posture softens. Her lips twitch toward a smile, and she drops her hand onto his neck, fingers buried in his fur. Natalie exhales. Maybe, just maybe, this is the start of something better. But the moment is fragile. A siren wails somewhere downtown. Rachel lowers her phone, her eyes meeting Natalie's with a silent question. What happens next? Across the park, the chatter grows louder, some voices sharp with gossip, others raw with sympathy. "She's a cop, right? Is she just going to leave that kid here? Someone should call child services." Natalie feels the weight of every stare, every whispered judgment. She could walk away, call it in, let the system handle it. But the idea makes her sick. A breeze kicks up, scattering pink petals at their feet. Natalie shivers, suddenly aware of how cold the morning really is. Ellie clings tighter to Shadow, finishing her sandwich in 3 quick bites, hunger momentarily replaced by exhaustion. Natalie wants to scoop her up, bring her home, keep her safe from a world that clearly failed her. But she knows the rules. She knows what happens to kids like Ellie. As the crowd begins to drift away, curiosity satisfied or discomfort too great, Natalie tucks a strand of hair behind Ellie's ear, voice trembling. "We're not going anywhere. Not until you're safe." In the background, Rachel keeps watching, phone back in her pocket now, pen ready. She senses a story, one that might just change everything. Shadow stays pressed close, his tail thumping softly against the bench, silent as a promise. As the sun climbs higher, hope flickers, fragile but real, in the small space between a wounded girl, a stubborn cop, and a dog who refuses to let go. Late afternoon drapes Maple Hollow Park in gold, the sunlight cutting long shadows across the grass. The morning's tension lingers, a hush that's settled over Natalie, Ellie, and Shadow as the park empties out. Natalie sits with Ellie on the same worn bench, keeping her body language relaxed, palms open, shoulders lowered. Shadow, never far from Ellie's side, curls up at her feet, brown eyes tracking every movement, ever vigilant. Natalie pulls a second water bottle from her backpack and cracks it open, handing it to Ellie. "You thirsty?" she asks, her voice soft as the breeze ruffling the maple leaves overhead. Ellie hesitates but takes the bottle, sipping greedily. There's a tremor in her hands. Her lips are cracked and raw. Natalie tries not to stare, but her heart aches with every detail she catches. For a while they just sit, letting the stillness work its quiet magic. Eventually, Natalie risks another question. "Can you tell me your story, sweetheart? Anything you want to say, I'm here to listen. I promise." Shadow inches closer to Ellie, his head resting lightly against her ankle as if to say, "I'm here too." Ellie draws her knees up to her chest, shrinking in on herself. She looks around the park, at the empty swings, the joggers passing by, the groups of kids with their mothers. Her gaze lingers longest on a pair of siblings playing tag, their laughter sharp in the soft air. She turns away, burying her face in her arms. For a moment, Natalie thinks she won't answer. But then Ellie starts to speak, her voice so small Natalie has to lean in to catch the words. "My mom. She died last winter." Each syllable is a blow. "We tried the shelters, but they turned us away. Too full. Too many rules. Sometimes the people there weren't nice. We ended up sleeping outside, sometimes in old buildings. When it got cold, my dad, he got sick. He said he'd be right back, but..." Ellie's voice breaks. "He never came back. I waited for days." A raw silence settles over them. Natalie's heart clenches as the old wounds inside her stir. She reaches for Shadow's fur, grounding herself in the dog's calm, sturdy presence. She knows what it's like to wait for someone who never returns. Ellie wipes her nose with the back of her hand, eyes red but defiant. "I'm not a baby. I can take care of myself. I just get hungry sometimes, that's all." Shadow nudges his nose into Ellie's palm, tail wagging gently. Natalie swallows hard, her jaw tight. "I believe you, Ellie. You're tough. Tougher than most adults I know." Just then, a ripple moves through the park. More people have stopped to stare, some drawn by curiosity, others by something more complicated. A cluster of teenagers whisper behind their phones, one or two snap pictures. An older couple clucks their tongues, shaking their heads as they walk past. Their words drift on the air. Someone needs to do something. That cop is just sitting there letting this happen? Rachel, the writer, is still there. She's moved closer, now standing under a nearby tree, notebook open. She doesn't film, but she writes with rapid, furtive strokes, glancing up at Natalie and Ellie every few moments. Natalie catches her eye, sees the empathy and the outrage there. Natalie feels the pressure building, the weight of being both protector and enforcer, the conflict between following the law and following her heart. She can't just take Ellie home, not without risking her job, not without risking Ellie slipping through the cracks again. But the thought of calling child services, of watching another little girl disappear into the system, makes her feel sick. Her mind races, searching for any loophole, any way to shield this child from another faceless institution. "Ellie," Natalie whispers, struggling to keep her composure. "I wish I could just bring you home, but there are rules. I have to call someone, but I promise, I won't let them hurt you. Not while I'm here. Ellie pulls her knees tighter, shoulders tense, the fear obvious in her body even if she doesn't say a word. They'll send me somewhere bad. I know it. The raw honesty in her voice makes Natalie want to scream. Shadow, sensing the heaviness, suddenly stretches forward and nudges the last piece of Natalie's sandwich closer to Ellie's lap. Ellie stares, then gives a tiny, grateful smile, small but real. She tears off a piece and offers it to Shadow, who eats from her hand, licking her fingers with warm, patient reassurance. All around, the world seems to hold its breath. Natalie sees the division on every face, judgment, pity, indifference, and the occasional spark of solidarity, but she doesn't care what they think. Not now. Her only focus is Ellie, and the sliver of trust blooming between them. Rachel scribbles something, then closes her notebook. She doesn't say anything, but she offers a nod to Natalie, a silent promise that the world will hear about this, that the moment won't vanish like so many others. As dusk begins to fall, the park empties out, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken questions. Natalie tucks her jacket tighter around Ellie's thin shoulders, murmuring, "You're not alone anymore. Not while I'm here. We'll face this together." Shadow sighs deeply, settling at their feet, a living shield against the darkness creeping in. For the first time in a long while, Ellie allows herself to lean into his warmth. As the streetlights flicker on, Natalie knows she can't change the world in a single day. But maybe, just maybe, she can change it for one little girl. Dusk settles gently over Maple Hollow, painting the world in pale violets and golds. The benches are emptying out. Only a few regulars remain, faces Natalie recognizes, though she rarely speaks to them. She's still on that same bench, Shadow curled up tight against her boots, Ellie sitting between them now, sandwich wrapper clenched in her small fist. There's a hush about the park that feels sacred, the kind of hush that falls right before a wound opens or a secret is finally spoken aloud. They sit beneath the blossoming trees, petals drifting down with every stray breeze. Ellie's shoulders have lost some of their tension. She keeps glancing at Shadow, her lips twitching whenever his tail flicks or his deep brown eyes meet hers. The dog seems to know that tonight, more than food or comfort, this child needs to feel seen. A rustle from behind the bench draws Natalie's gaze. Joe Patterson, homeless, hair gray and wild, beard like steel wool, eyes sharp and gentle, appears from the gloom. He's a fixture in the park, a veteran who sleeps beneath the old covered bridge when the shelters fill up. Most people ignore him. Natalie never does. He clears his throat, voice low and rough. "You're making friends, Nat." He nods at Ellie, gives her a small, respectful smile. Ellie studies him with wary interest, unsure if he's friend or threat. Natalie shakes her head, softening. "Joe, this is Ellie." "She's had a rough go." Joe squints at the girl, recognition dawning in his eyes. "She's tough. I seen her out here a few nights. Cold don't scare her, not like most." His words land with a strange comfort. He means them as respect, not warning. He glances at Shadow. "That dog's good people too." With a silent nod, he ambles off into the dusk, leaving behind the ghost of old battles and hard-earned wisdom. A few yards away, Edith and Sam Caldwell, both well into their 70s, sit shoulder to shoulder on their usual bench, wrapped in matching windbreakers. They watch the trio from afar, hands clasped, lost in memories. Their son was taken by leukemia decades ago. Sometimes Natalie catches Edith looking at kids in the park with a longing so raw it hurts. Tonight their eyes linger on Ellie, soft and sorrowful. There's no judgment in their gaze, only an echo of shared grief. The streetlights begin to glow one by one. Shadows grow longer. Natalie feels herself slipping back to her own childhood, another park, another hungry night. Her mother's face flashes in her mind, bone-tired and gaunt, her voice ragged from too many broken promises. Natalie remembers hiding beneath picnic tables, listening to adults argue about whose problem she was. She remembers the taste of hunger, the throb of wanting to be invisible and yet seen. She closes her eyes for a moment, breathes in the scent of cut grass and rain. Shadow leans into her, a solid anchor. He senses it all. The way Natalie's heart races, the tremble in her fingers as she reaches for Ellie's hand. The girl startles but doesn't pull away. Natalie lets herself be quiet. Sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones you never say out loud. The park is nearly empty when Rachel approaches, notebook in hand. She's lost her phone somewhere in her bag, pen poised like a conductor's baton. "Mind if I join you?" she asks softly, her voice kind but edged with urgency. Natalie shrugs, too tired for small talk. Rachel sits on the end of the bench, gaze shifting between the cop, the girl, and the dog. For a moment, nobody speaks. Finally, Rachel clears her throat. "I filmed that moment earlier, not because I wanted to shame anyone. God knows this town loves a scandal, but because I saw something the world needs to see. There are too many invisible kids, too many people pretending not to notice." She looks at Ellie, lowering her voice. "You don't have to talk to me if you don't want. I think people need to know what's happening, that there's hope, even in the hard stuff." Ellie doesn't reply, but her hand creeps over to Shadow, gripping his ear with surprising tenderness. Natalie studies Rachel, weighing the risk. There's fear here, fear of headlines, of losing control, of having Ellie's story turned into a spectacle. But there's also possibility, the chance that one small story could ripple out, changing more than just 3 lives. Rachel is gentle, never pushing, just listening. She tells a little about herself, how she left the city after burning out, how she ended up writing human stories for local papers, trying to make the world a little less lonely. She talks about her own brother, lost to addiction, how she wished someone had noticed him before it was too late. The pain in her voice is raw, real. Natalie feels something inside her soften, a thread of kinship forming between the women, forged in loss and longing. A breeze stirs the petals, scattering them across Ellie's knees. For the first time, the girl smiles. A tiny, real smile, the kind that's all the more precious for how hard it is to come by. Night deepens, the park almost deserted now. Edith and Sam wave as they leave, their faces soft with understanding. Joe Patterson passes by again, pressing a granola bar into Natalie's hand for Ellie. "Share it," he grumbles, disappearing before she can thank him. The air is thick with things unsaid, the ache of old grief, the longing for safety, the fear that tomorrow will bring nothing but more struggle. But in the quiet, something else grows, a fragile sense of hope, of unlikely family. Natalie knows she can't fix everything, but tonight, beneath the blossoming trees, surrounded by quiet witnesses and buried grief, she lets herself believe that maybe, just maybe, none of them have to be alone. Shadow nudges Ellie one last time, his eyes shining in the lamplight. Ellie lays her head against his back, closing her eyes as if she finally trusts that, for this one night at least, she's safe. Rain begins its gentle percussion on the windshield as Natalie steers her patrol car through Maple Hollow's narrow streets, Ellie in the passenger seat, Shadow riding quietly in the back. The late-night world outside is blurred and streaked, neon signs smearing color across puddled asphalt. The girl sits silent, hands folded tight in her lap, eyes locked on the dark road ahead. Even Shadow's presence, close but separated by the steel of the cage partition, feels like a comfort just out of reach. Natalie glances over, her face softened by the dashboard's blue glow. "You warm enough?" she asks. Ellie nods, but she's shivering. Natalie cranks the heat, then hesitates, fumbling in the glove box for a faded photograph she keeps tucked away. She turns on the dome light, showing Ellie the image. Natalie, maybe 12, thin as a rail, hair tangled and face set in that same wary expression Ellie wears now. Beside her in the picture is a tired woman with haunted eyes and a social worker half smiling at the camera. "I know what it's like," Natalie says, her voice quiet as the rain. "I lost my mom, too. Sometimes, I still feel hungry for things I can't name." Ellie's eyes dart from the photo to Natalie, searching her face for a lie and finding only the trembling edge of truth. The silence between them deepens, but it's not empty anymore. Ellie traces the outline of Natalie's mother with her fingertip, lips barely moving. "Was it scary?" she whispers. Natalie swallows, remembering nights spent in the backs of cars, the ache of wanting to belong somewhere, anywhere. "Every day," she admits. "But people helped me. Some stayed for just a moment, some longer. All of them made it hurt a little less. The car slows as they near the intake center, a squat brick building, harshly lit and surrounded by a chain-link fence. The rain intensifies, drumming on the roof as Natalie finds a parking space near the entrance. For a moment, no one moves. Ellie's face is pale, her hands balled into fists. "Do I have to go in?" Her voice is so small it's almost lost in the rain's hush. Natalie wants to say no, wants to break every rule and just drive away, but she can't. "Just for tonight, Ellie. I'll be here in the morning." And Shadow? She looks back at the dog whose ears are pressed flat in worry. He'd break down the door if he could. That gets a tiny, shaky smile from Ellie. Inside, the center is sterile, linoleum floors, humming vending machines, and the faint tang of bleach. Natalie guides Ellie in, filling out paperwork with practiced efficiency, but her heart pounds with each line she signs. She hates this part, hates the look in Ellie's eyes as she's led away by an intake worker, Daria Cole, a sturdy woman with gentle hands who recognizes Natalie immediately. "You're back," Daria murmurs, glancing at Shadow outside through the glass. "I still remember that day in the subway. You and that dog saved my life." Her voice is thick with gratitude. "We'll keep her safe tonight, I promise." Ellie's resolve crumbles as she glances back at the door where Shadow sits pressed up against the glass, nose fogging the pain. "He's waiting," she whispers. Daria crouches down, eye level with the girl. "He won't leave until you come out. That's how dogs are. That's how love is." Natalie stands helplessly as the door closes between her and Ellie. She wants to bang her fist against the window, wants to demand an exception, wants to be Shadow, unmoving, unbreakable, waiting through rain and thunder for the one he loves. But the rules are rules. Shadow whines, refusing to budge, water pooling around his paws as the storm lashes the entryway. He curls up, tail tucked tight, eyes fixed on the spot where Ellie disappeared. Ellie is led down a hallway, past rows of bunks and sleeping children, to a room with a single bed and a faded quilt. She sits on the edge, shoes dangling, heart beating so loud it fills the silence. She can still see Shadow through the glass, rain running in rivers down the window. Every time lightning flashes, she checks to make sure he's still there. Up front, Natalie waits under the flickering fluorescent lights, filling out more forms, trying to convince herself she's done the right thing. She catches sight of her own reflection in the window. A grown woman, badge clipped to her belt, but inside, still the scared little girl who once slept in shelters just like this. She wanders outside, letting the rain soak through her jacket, joining Shadow beneath the awning. She sits on the cold concrete, shoulder to fur, silent and watchful. "She's stronger than she knows," she murmurs to Shadow. He noses her palm, agreeing with a quiet huff. Inside, Ellie listens to the storm. She hugs a scratchy pillow, but it doesn't help. The world feels vast and empty, but every time she glances at the door, she sees Shadow's shape, faithful, unmoving, a silent promise she's not forgotten. The night stretches long. Natalie keeps vigil, not leaving until the small hours force her home. Before she goes, she presses her hand to the glass, whispering, "See you in the morning, Ellie." Shadow remains, a sentinel in the rain, proof that real loyalty does not waver, even when hope seems thin. By dawn, the storm has passed. The first pale light finds Shadow still curled at the door, soaked but steadfast, eyes fixed on the horizon, waiting for the only family that matters now. And inside, Ellie finally closes her eyes, trusting, for the first time in a long while, that someone will still be there when she wakes. Rain patters ceaselessly on the intake center's high windows, turning the parking lot into a mirror of city lights and red neon. Inside, the air is thick and still, broken only by the distant hum of the heating system and the soft creak of old floorboards as staff move quietly through the halls. In her small, borrowed bunk, Ellie lies wide awake, the unfamiliar mattress hard beneath her thin frame. Her damp dress hangs on a chair, shoes lined up beside it like loyal soldiers. Even with the scratchy quilt pulled tight to her chin, she can't stop shivering, not from cold, but from the weight of the day. The memory of Shadow, his fur warm, his body solid beside her. burns in her mind. She sits up, tiptoes to the window, and wipes a patch clear with her palm. There he is, a dark, shaggy shape curled beneath the bright doorway, rainwater pooling around him, chest rising and falling in patient rhythm. He hasn't left, not once. Ellie's breath fogs the glass as she whispers, "You stayed." A lump rises in her throat, sharp and unfamiliar. She bites her lip, blinking back tears. Somewhere in the corridor, a child cries out in sleep and is hushed by a gentle voice. The sound makes her chest ache. She presses her forehead to the glass, wishing she could reach through it, wishing she could run outside and bury herself in Shadow's fur, feel the weight of his loyalty anchoring her to the earth. Hours drag by. The storm only grows, rattling the window panes, wind howling at the edges of the building. Staff move through the hall in soft-soled shoes, their voices hushed, paperwork and protocols holding the night together. Daria Cole, the intake supervisor, pauses by Ellie's door with a cup of warm cocoa. She doesn't force a conversation, just sits nearby, sipping her own drink. "Can't sleep?" Daria's voice is gentle. Ellie shakes her head, eyes fixed on the window. "He won't leave," she says, barely louder than the rain. Daria nods, a smile flickering. "That dog is something special. You know, a few years back, Sergeant Turner and Shadow found me when I needed help the most. I was lost, literally, in the subway tunnels and scared out of my mind. That dog found me in the dark. Natalie talked me down. She saved my life that night. I promised I'd try to be that safe person for someone else, if I could." Ellie glances at Daria, studying the lines on her face, the honesty in her voice. It feels good to know Natalie and Shadow have done this before, for other lost souls. It makes her believe just for a moment that maybe people really can care about a stranger. While the rain drums on, a different storm is brewing far beyond the intake center's walls. Rachel's video of Ellie's first encounter with Natalie and Shadow has hit the internet, posted without warning or preamble. Within hours, it's everywhere. Local pages, then city feeds, then national sites, the comments section overflowing with outrage, heartbreak, and offers of help. People argue in the thread, why isn't the system helping her? How can a cop do more than all the agencies? Someone starts a GoFundMe. Someone else writes to the mayor. And someone else in the middle of the night drives down to Maple Hollow to leave a bag of clean clothes on the intake center steps. Back at home, Natalie paces the kitchen, restless. She's tried everything to sleep. Her bed feels too big, her heart too full of dread. She keeps replaying the image of Ellie's small face behind the glass, the way Shadow refused to budge, the helplessness in her own hands as she signed those papers. What if the center calls Child Protective Services? What if Ellie runs away before morning? What if she never sees her again? She stops in front of the window, rain painting the streetlights into trembling gold. Her phone pings, text after text, voicemail after voicemail. The world has seen Rachel's video now. She scrolls, numb, through hundreds of messages, offers of support, strangers wanting to donate, old friends from the force urging her to do what's right, whatever that means. For the first time, she feels less alone and more exposed than ever. Back in the intake center, Ellie can't sleep. She curls up beneath the blanket, counting the seconds between thunderclaps, each one a wish that morning would come faster. When she glances at the window again, Shadow has not moved, a dark guardian against the storm. She places her palm to the glass, mouthing a promise only the dog could ever hear. "Don't go, please, don't go." Through the long, slow hours of the night, time stretches and bends. Daria checks in once more, sitting with Ellie and telling her stories about when she was a kid, about how scary it is to feel small and forgotten, about the ways a single act of kindness can ripple out further than you'd ever believe. Down the hall, another intake worker takes a call from Natalie. "She's okay," he tells her, "still awake, but safe. Shadow hasn't left. We'll call if anything changes." Natalie thanks him, but it's little comfort. She makes tea, but lets it go cold. As dawn creeps over Maple Hollow, the storm finally breaks. The rain quiets, the wind dies down. Ellie is still awake, circles under her eyes, but her heart steadied by the shape of Shadow waiting for her, by the promise in his eyes that nothing, not rain, not night, not fear, can break the bond they've begun to build. And outside, as the first rays of sun strike the wet pavement, Shadow stands, shakes the water from his fur, and stares through the glass at Ellie. He does not wag his tail, does not bark. He simply waits, living proof that love, real love, is loyal, patient, and unyielding even through the hardest night. Morning breaks sharp and bright over Maple Hollow, painting everything in hopeful gold after the long, bruised night. Dew glistens on every blade of grass. At the intake center, the staff move quickly, phones ringing, doors opening, coffee brewing at double speed. There's a strange electricity in the air, as if the whole building knows something has shifted. Rachel's video has exploded online. By the time Ellie pads barefoot into the common room, her hair still mussed from a sleepless night, the story has already become a storm. The front desk phone rings non-stop. A stack of fresh donations sits in the lobby. Jackets, shoes, backpacks stuffed with school supplies and snacks. Flyers from the local Hearts Hearths Foundation are taped to the glass doors. Reporters from 2 TV stations mill outside, pressed up against the fence, their cameras pointed hopefully at every face. Ellie tries to shrink into herself, clutching a new sweater someone left for her. Shadow is waiting by the door, tail thumping softly. The instant he spots her, his eyes go bright and warm. He presses his nose to the glass as if to say, "See, I never left." She hurries over and kneels beside the door, fingers brushing his fur through the gap at the bottom. "I missed you," she whispers, voice hoarse. Inside, Daria hands Natalie a coffee and a thick folder full of forms. "Your life's about to get a whole lot more complicated," Daria says quietly. "You ready for that?" Natalie, exhausted but resolute, nods. "I was ready the second that kid walked out of the bushes." Her phone buzzes for the 100th time. She ignores it. In the kitchen, a TV blares. Small-town cops' act of kindness for a homeless girl sparks national outcry. Viewers rally around Maple Hollow's Ellie and her loyal dog guardian, Shadow. The words are surreal. The faces of Rachel, Natalie, and Ellie flash across the screen, sometimes in slow motion, sometimes cut with childhood photos of other kids lost and found. In the comments, there's support and rage and heartbreak. Strangers share their own stories of hunger and loss, of finding hope in the unlikeliest places. Natalie scrolls through her inbox. Letters from old foster kids, retired cops, even a judge she once argued with. There are offers of help. People want to donate, volunteer, even adopt. The Hearts Hearths Foundation, a local nonprofit that advocates for foster youth, has set up a fund in Ellie's name. One message stands out. A legal team offering to support Natalie if she wants to become Ellie's guardian. Her hands shake as she reads it, hope flaring and then retreating behind caution. Rachel is both hero and villain online. Some praise her for shining a light on the hidden suffering in their town. Others attack her for filming such a vulnerable moment, accusing her of exploiting a child for clicks. Rachel tries not to read the comments, but they sting anyway. Ellie watches Natalie carefully, sensing the tension in her every movement. "Are you mad at the lady with the camera?" she asks softly. Natalie hesitates, then kneels so she's eye level with Ellie. "No, honey." She wanted to help. Sometimes that means telling a hard story. Suddenly, 2 suited officials from Child Protective Services arrive, briefcases in hand. The lobby grows tense. They ask Natalie a battery of questions. How did she find Ellie? What are her intentions? Does she understand she can't just rescue a child and take her home? The words sting, but Natalie stands her ground, voice even and strong. "I'm not here to be a savior. I'm here because she's a person, not a problem to be solved. She needs someone who won't give up on her. That's all." One official frowns, flipping through the folder. "You're too close to this case, Sergeant Turner. The rules are clear." A sharp silence falls. But before Natalie can respond, Daria steps in. "With all due respect, sometimes the rules are wrong. This is a child, not a box to check." Meanwhile, outside, a small crowd is gathered. People hold signs. Every child matters. Let Ellie stay. Thank you, Natalie's shadow. And chant quietly. Rachel films it all, her hands trembling. She feels the story snowballing beyond her control, her own name now tied to a cause she never meant to ignite. Inside, Shadow paces, restless, sensing the unease in the room. He presses his head into Ellie's chest, her arms encircling him as if he's a life raft. She whispers, "Don't let them take me. Please." Natalie kneels beside them, looking Ellie straight in the eye. "I made you a promise, remember? I won't let you disappear. Not ever." Her voice is fierce, a lifeline tossed across the gulf of uncertainty. As the morning wears on, calls and messages pour in. Parents offering to foster, kids sending letters, even donations from strangers halfway across the country. The Hearts Hearths Foundation offers Natalie a path, legal and financial support if she chooses to fight for custody. The risk is real, but so is the chance at a new life. And then a moment of grace. The local news interviews Natalie on camera. She looks right into the lens, her face drawn but determined. "I won't let Ellie be forgotten," she says, voice steady. "Every kid deserves a family, someone who believes in them, no matter what." Outside, the crowd cheers. Inside, Ellie clings to Shadow, a glimmer of hope growing in her eyes. The storm of the night has given way to a brighter, louder storm, one of attention, controversy, and possibility. For the first time, Natalie allows herself to believe they might actually have a chance. A week later, Maple Hollow's courthouse is surrounded by a sea of umbrellas and restless faces. The viral story has done what few local scandals ever manage, drawn the entire community into its orbit. Protesters and supporters huddle side by side beneath gray skies. TV crews jostle for space, and banners flutter. "Ellie deserves a home. Let love decide." "Thank you, Shadow." In the midst of this storm, Natalie stands tall, Shadow steady at her side, Ellie's small hand clasped tightly in hers. Inside, the air is charged, a heavy blend of anxiety, hope, and old wounds. The wooden benches are full. Journalists scribble notes, townsfolk crane their necks for a glimpse, and nearly everyone in Maple Hollow seems to have shown up, ready to witness history. Ellie fidgets in a too-big dress, her hair braided neatly by Daria that morning, but her eyes are storm-dark with fear. Shadow sits at her feet, calm as ever, his head resting lightly on her shoe. Judge Richard Whitaker presides, a tall, silver-haired man whose reputation for fairness is matched only by his deep understanding of the foster system. Few in the courtroom know that decades ago, he was the one who rescued a young Natalie Turner from her own storm. As the hearing begins, the judge's gaze lingers on Natalie a second longer than protocol demands, recognition softening his stern face. The first witness is Daria Cole. She recounts Natalie and Shadow's heroism, her own rescue from the subway years ago, and the compassion she's seen Natalie show again and again. Her voice trembles with emotion as she looks at Ellie. She deserves a home, not a placement, not a file number, a real home. Next, Joe Patterson, homeless, grizzled, but clean-shaven for the first time in years, stands tall before the court. "I seen plenty of kids slip through the cracks. Ellie ain't just tough, she's got a fire inside." Sergeant Turner is the first person to notice, to care. Joe's testimony isn't eloquent, but its raw truth hushes the room. Edith and Sam Caldwell, hand in hand, speak softly about the pain of losing their own son and the healing they found watching Natalie, Ellie, and Shadow in the park. "Family isn't just blood," Edith says, voice cracking. "Sometimes it's the ones who choose you." Rachel takes the stand, her nerves visible, but her resolve clear. She explains why she filmed that first moment in the park, fighting back tears as she tells the judge, "I wanted the world to see what happens when we pay attention, when we don't turn away." She describes the outpouring of support and backlash that's followed, and how Ellie's courage has inspired hundreds to reach out. Then it's Natalie's turn. She stands, hands clasped in front of her, her uniform traded for a simple blue dress. Her voice is steady, but every word is weighted with vulnerability. "I know the rules," she says quietly. I know what the system expects. But I also know what it's like to be lost, to need someone who believes in you no matter how messy or hard it gets. I can't promise perfection. I can only promise I'll never give up. She doesn't hide her flaws. She talks about her own rough childhood, her mother's addiction, the night she went hungry. I've made mistakes. I carry scars. But maybe that's why I see Ellie, really see her, because once, someone saw me. Ellie is asked to speak. Her hands shake, voice small but unwavering. Shadow never left me, not even in the rain. Miss Natalie made me feel safe. I want to stay. Her plea is simple, pure, a wish spoken aloud in a place where wishes rarely come true. The judge calls for a recess, his face unreadable. Natalie sits beside Ellie and Shadow in the hallway, nerves buzzing. Around them, supporters offer quiet smiles, while others whisper about special treatment. Someone mutters, "If she weren't a cop, this would never happen." The tension is real, but so is the support. A mosaic of voices for and against, hope and doubt entwined. Shadow senses the strain. He lays his head on Ellie's knee, and for a moment the world shrinks to just the three of them, a team weathering the storm together. After what feels like hours, the bailiff calls everyone back. The courtroom is silent as Judge Whitaker returns, shuffling papers, eyes heavy with the burden of his decision. He speaks softly at first. This case is unusual. It's not about what's easy, it's about what's right. He recounts the testimony, the community's involvement, and Ellie's own wishes. Then, turning to Natalie, he says, "Sergeant Turner, you know the darkness these kids face. You've walked through it yourself. I trust you not because you wear a badge, but because you never stopped being one of them." A pause, the world holding its breath. Then the judge continues, "Effective immediately, I grant temporary guardianship of Ellie to Natalie Turner, pending a formal review." The courtroom erupts, some in applause, some in murmurs of dissent. Ellie bursts into tears, clinging to Natalie. Shadow lets out a joyful bark, tail thumping the floor. Daria hugs Joe, who wipes his eyes on his sleeve. Edith and Sam hold each other, faces shining with hope. But even in victory, doubt lingers. Not everyone is pleased. Outside, a small group shakes their heads, muttering about privilege, about rules bent for the right people. Natalie hears them but doesn't flinch. She hugs Ellie close, whispering, "You're safe. I've got you." For the first time, Ellie laughs, truly laughs, as Shadow dances around her, barking in delight. It's a sound that cuts through every shadow in the room. As the courthouse empties, the trio stands in the doorway, sunlight breaking through gray clouds at last. Together, they step forward, not just into the world, but into a new beginning. Sunlight finally returns to Maple Hollow, pouring golden warmth over the courthouse steps as if to signal the end of a storm. Natalie, Ellie, and Shadow step outside together. The courthouse crowd still lingering, buzzing with relief, congratulations, and the inevitable snap of cameras. For a moment, Ellie hesitates on the top step, uncertainty flickering across her face. Could this really be happening? But then Shadow bounds up to her, tail wagging so hard his whole body shakes. Ellie drops to her knees on the sun-warmed concrete, arms thrown around the German shepherd's thick neck. Tears stream down her cheeks, but this time, they're chased by laughter. "You silly dog," she chokes, hugging him fiercely, as if she could anchor herself to his heartbeat. Shadow's tongue lolls out in a goofy grin, and Natalie can't help but laugh along, her own eyes stinging. Natalie crouches beside them. Her hands rest gently on Ellie's back, grounding her in the chaos. "We're a team now," she whispers, her voice just for Ellie and Shadow. "All three of us. We take care of each other. That's the deal." The words hang in the air, simple, solemn, but they settle deep into Ellie's bones. The crowd slowly disperses, some lingering to offer congratulations or ask for interviews. Rachel, clutching her notepad, finds Natalie and Ellie by the old maple tree at the edge of the courthouse lawn. Rachel's eyes are red, her hands trembling as she scribbles the day's final notes. "You did it," she breathes, awed. "You really did it. Ellie, how do you feel?" For the first time, Ellie doesn't shrink from the attention. She straightens, her voice quiet but steady. "Like I finally belong somewhere. Like it's not all bad anymore." Rachel's smile trembles. She asks permission to take a photo. Ellie and Shadow together, Natalie behind them, the three of them framed by sunlight and spring leaves. The picture, later posted online with Rachel's story, spreads hope even further than the first viral video. Edith and Sam Caldwell wave from the crowd, tears shining on Edith's cheeks. Joe Patterson, with a fresh haircut and an awkward smile, gives Ellie a thumbs up. Daria squeezes Natalie's hand and promises, "You've got more support than you know." For a second, Natalie feels the walls she's built her whole life begin to crumble. This isn't just a victory for Ellie. It's a healing for all of them, a second chance for the wounded and the weary. As the afternoon stretches, the judge calls Natalie back for a quick word. "There'll be a formal hearing in a month," he reminds her. "This isn't the end of the road, but until then, Ellie's yours." He lowers his voice. "Take care of her." "Let her take care of you too." Natalie nods, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I will, I promise." They pile into Natalie's old sedan, Shadow sprawled in the back seat, Ellie hugging him the whole way. As they pull away from the courthouse, Ellie presses her forehead to the window, watching the crowd recede. "Is it really okay for me to come home with you?" she asks, voice trembling between hope and disbelief. Natalie looks at her in the rearview mirror, her smile warm and sure. "It's not just my home now. It's yours too, for as long as you want it." Still, there's fear. That night, Ellie unpacks her donated backpack in Natalie's small, sunlit apartment. She fingers the unfamiliar clothes, lines up her new toothbrush and hairbrush, as if to prove she's really staying. Shadow sprawls on the rug, one paw always touching her foot, as if afraid she might vanish if he lets go. At bedtime, Ellie lingers in the doorway of her new room, clutching a pillow. "Are you sure I can stay?" "What if they change their minds?" Natalie crouches beside her, steady and honest. "Nothing's guaranteed, but you're safe here, and I won't let you go unless you want to leave. That's a promise." She tucks Ellie into bed, smoothing her hair from her face, then sits on the edge of the mattress, Shadow curled between them. "You know, I was scared the first time someone gave me a room of my own. I kept waiting for it to disappear, but it didn't. It became home, slowly, but it did. It can for you, too." Ellie doesn't answer. She just wraps her arms around Shadow, burying her face in his neck. The big dog sighs, his eyes heavy with love and duty, and for the first time since her mother died, Ellie lets herself fall asleep without fear. In the living room, Natalie finally breathes. The weight of the day presses down, exhaustion, joy, anxiety for what's to come. She pours herself a cup of tea and journals quietly, as she always does when her thoughts are too tangled to speak aloud. "We're a team. It won't be easy, but it's real. She's real. And I'm still standing." Late at night, Rachel's new story is published. A photo of Natalie, Ellie, and Shadow beneath the courthouse maples, sunlight blazing behind them. The headline reads, "A Found Family, Maple Hollow's Hope." The article floods with comments, offers of support, stories from other foster kids and their parents, people reaching out to say, "You helped me believe again." The impact ripples far beyond what any of them could see. Morning comes soft and gentle. The three of them gather around the kitchen table, Ellie quietly pouring orange juice, Shadow's tail thumping as Natalie flips pancakes. Laughter rings out, cautious at first, then easier, then real. For the first time, it feels like the beginning of a family, not just surviving, but starting to live. Still, Ellie glances over her shoulder now and then, haunted by the fear that it's too good to last. But every time, Natalie and Shadow are there. A look, a gentle touch, a warm breakfast, a promise quietly kept. And so, the roots of trust, delicate but growing, begin to take hold. Sunrise spills into Natalie's small kitchen, turning the pale yellow walls to gold. For the first time in years, the place feels alive, no longer just somewhere to sleep between shifts, but a true home echoing with soft laughter, the scrape of chairs, the gentle pad of paws. On this morning, the air is thick with the smell of pancakes and the promise of something new. Ellie sits at the kitchen table, hair damp from her shower, cheeks still rosy from sleep. She clutches a piece of bright pink stationery, tongue between her teeth as she scribbles a letter. "What do you want to say?" Natalie asks, sliding a plate of pancakes onto the table. Ellie looks up, her face open in a way it never was before. I want to thank people for seeing me, for not pretending I was invisible. She tucks a stray curl behind her ear and bites the end of her pen. Shadow snoozes nearby, nose twitching in a pancake-scented dream, his big frame curled right beside Ellie's feet. She occasionally glances down, comforted by the dog's steady presence, a reminder that some loyalties never fade. Natalie watches them from the stove, humming to herself as she cracks another egg, a melody she hasn't dared let out in years. She almost doesn't notice the change, how her own hands, usually tight with tension, move easily now, how her voice is softer, even lighter. After breakfast, Ellie joins Natalie at the counter. "Can I help?" she asks, hesitant but hopeful. Natalie grins, handing her a whisk. "Of course, family helps each other." Ellie cracks an egg, too hard, shell scattering everywhere. She gasps, mortified, but Natalie only laughs. "Hey, that was me when I started out." Ellie giggles and tries again, her confidence building, the air between them charged with something delicate and new. Later, as Natalie scrolls through her phone, she sees dozens of messages, more than she can answer. There are letters from other foster kids, from parents, from social workers who say Ellie's story made them remember why they started. Even the local paper wants to publish Ellie's thank you letter, calling it the most hopeful thing we've read all year. The world has cracked open for Ellie, revealing a network of strangers rooting for her. Natalie's heart aches with gratitude and fear. So much can change, so quickly. When the mail arrives, Ellie sorts through the pile, most addressed to Natalie, but a few, remarkably, just for her. One is from a girl her age in another state. "You're so brave. I'm in foster care too. If you ever want to talk, here's my number." Another is a drawing of Shadow labeled "Best Dog Ever." Ellie hangs these up on the fridge, her face shining. The days settle into a gentle routine. Ellie helps Natalie cook, reads to Shadow, and starts on a puzzle that sprawls across half the dining table. There are nightmares, still, shadows from before, memories that creep in as she drifts off. Sometimes she wakes up crying, her small body rigid with fear. But now, there's always Shadow's cold nose nudging her hand, or Natalie's soft voice soothing her through the darkness. "It's okay, honey. I'm here. I'm not leaving." One afternoon, Ellie asks, "Did you ever get scared at night?" Natalie sits beside her, knees touching. "All the time," she confides. "But I learned something important. You don't have to be brave alone. That's what families are for." Ellie considers this, then slides a puzzle piece into place, the smallest smile curling on her lips. Sometimes Natalie journals late at night, chronicling their new life together, the chaos, the small victories, the setbacks. One entry reads, "When I met Ellie, I saw my own lost childhood. I thought I was saving her, but she's saving something in me too. We're all shaped by what we survive, but it's kindness, small, steady, honest, that helps us rewrite what's possible. Healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means weaving those painful threads into something new, together." The house is full of little changes. Shadow's new spot at the foot of Ellie's bed, her drawings taped along the hallway, Natalie's humming in the mornings, the scent of pancakes that lingers long after breakfast. They are learning each other's rhythms, when to give space, when to reach out, how to forgive the old bruises life left behind. A week after the hearing, Natalie receives a package from the local newspaper. Inside is a proof of Ellie's letter, accompanied by an editorial titled, "Thank You for Seeing Me." The story runs on the front page that Sunday. The mailbox fills with new letters, offers of support, invitations to speak, even a request from a nearby school for Natalie and Ellie to share their story. Natalie's first instinct is to shield Ellie from the attention, but Ellie surprises her. "If I can help even one kid feel less invisible, I want to do it." The community's response is overwhelming. Foster parents, caseworkers, and even teenagers gather for a Sunday pancake breakfast in Natalie's kitchen, laughter and stories filling the small house. Ellie sits at the head of the table, Shadow under her chair, basking in the warmth of connection. She's still quiet, still careful, but her walls are lower now, her eyes brighter. The house isn't without shadows. Some neighbors whisper about special treatment, others hint that things like this never last. Natalie hears the rumors but refuses to let them in. She focuses on Ellie, on Shadow, on the slow, hopeful work of building something lasting from broken pieces. At night, as moonlight spills across the kitchen, Ellie and Natalie work side by side on their puzzle, Shadow snuffling curiously at the edge. When he tries to swipe a piece, both of them burst out laughing. The moment is fragile but real, proof that play, hope, and trust are taking root. The pain isn't gone, but neither are the new joys. In her journal, Natalie writes one last note before sleep. You don't erase the past. You build something beautiful around it. We're doing that. One day, one act of kindness at a time. 1 year later, Maple Hollow Park has returned to life. It's the first spring picnic since the story that changed everything, and today, the park is brighter than ever. Tables are draped with checkered cloths covered in stacks of sandwiches, cookies, and lemonade. A soft breeze stirs the grass, carrying laughter and the happy shrieks of children across the wide green lawns. Natalie, Ellie, and Shadow are here early, carrying baskets, setting up games, and welcoming a steady stream of kids from the local foster network, along with their new friends and foster families. Ellie stands tall among the other children, her hair pulled back with a yellow ribbon, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that reads, "Kindness Matters." She looks older now, her cheeks full, her eyes clearer, the hard edges softened by a year of love and stability. Natalie watches from under the shade of a blooming dogwood tree, quietly proud, Shadow sprawled beside her in the grass, tongue lolling, always keeping one eye on Ellie. As more families arrive, Natalie moves from table to table, greeting newcomers and hugging old friends. Daria, Joe Patterson, now working as a park gardener, Edith and Sam Caldwell, even Rachel, who has become something like extended family. There's food and music, kids tossing frisbees, a paint-your-own birdhouse booth, and an endless line for Shadow's meet and greet. Every time a child hesitates on the edge of the festivities, Shadow finds them, gently bumping a hand or wagging his tail, inviting them in. Near the playground, Ellie notices a little boy standing alone at the edge of the grass. He's thin, staring at his shoes, not speaking. His mother, tense, exhausted, hovers nearby, unsure how to help. Ellie recognizes the look in the boy's eyes, that old ache of being invisible. Without hesitating, she walks over, Shadow padding alongside her. She kneels down, meeting the boy at eye level. "Hey," she says gently. "Shadow and I were hoping for someone to help us with the beanbag toss. Would you like to join us?" The boy looks at his mom, uncertain, then nods, a small smile tugging at his lips. His mother's eyes brim with tears, and she mouths a silent thank you to Ellie. Later, as the sun dips low, Rachel interviews Natalie and Ellie beneath a canopy of white blossoms. Rachel has watched their journey unfold in ways even her reporting couldn't capture. Quiet victories, small setbacks, the unglamorous but relentless work of building trust and family. She asks, "Ellie, what's changed for you this year?" Ellie glances at Shadow, then at Natalie. "Shadow helped me find my safe place," she says, her voice steady and clear. "Ms. Natalie taught me to be brave. Now I want to do that for other kids. I don't want anyone to feel like they don't matter." Rachel turns to Natalie. "What do you hope people take from your story?" Natalie's gaze drifts over the crowd, the children laughing, the adults sharing stories, the ways that kindness has rippled outward from a single day in the park. "Sometimes saving someone isn't about grand gestures," she says. "It's about never looking away, about showing up again and again, even when it's hard. We heal not by pretending we aren't broken, but by letting ourselves be loved and loving others back." That evening, as tables are packed up and the last cupcake wrappers collected, the foster families linger in the golden light, reluctant to let the day end. A few of the older kids help Ellie and Natalie tie bunches of balloons to the playground fence, each one marked with a message. "You are seen, you belong, you matter." Before heading home, Natalie gathers everyone for a group photo. Shadow squeezes into the center, his big head pressed to Ellie's shoulder. They're all smiling, awkwardly, shyly, but genuinely. In that picture is proof that family is not defined by blood, but by love, choice, and the small acts of courage it takes to keep showing up. Afterward, Ellie and Natalie help a few younger kids clean up, then stroll home together, Shadow leading the way. The sky glows pink and orange behind them, the town alive with the sound of new beginnings. Ellie slips her hand into Natalie's, sighing happily. "Do you think it'll last?" she asks. Natalie squeezes her hand. "Yes," she says, "because we make it last. By being here, every day, by being brave, by choosing each other." As they walk, the narrator's voice settles over the scene, a gentle call to those listening and watching. Let no one be invisible. Let your kindness ripple outward. Like and follow for more stories, and remember, even the smallest act of love can change a life. Universal lessons, compassion's ripple, every small act matters. The decision to share a meal, to listen, to offer comfort, can unlock hope and belonging for someone who needs it most. No one. Invisible. True healing begins the moment we see each other fully, child, adult, or animal. No one should ever have to walk through life feeling unseen. Found family. Family is built by love, loyalty, and choice. Shadow's patience, Ellie's resilience, Natalie's steadfastness. They're proof that new roots can grow anywhere, even in the hardest soil. The scene fades as the trio walks home together, the park alive behind them. Laughter drifts on the air, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of Shadow barking, joyful, bright, and full of promise, reminds everyone that the story, and the hope it carries, goes on.